time we take political correctness and throw it in the garbage where it belongs and stop calling it.
Meet the fierce and unapologetic Bridget Gabriel, who took on a Muslim student in a discussion about the Benghazi attacks. This debate wasn't just about Benghazi, it was about freedom of speech, political correctness, and the complex issue of radicalism with Islam. Buckle up, because this is going to be one fiery discussion. So, let's set the stage. Bridget Gabriel, a well-known commentator, is in the middle of a panel discussing the Benghazi attacks. Suddenly, a Muslim student, let's call her Saba Ahmed, decides to shift the focus to a broader question about Muslims and peace.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace to you all. My name is Saba Ahmed. I'm a law student at American University. I am here to ask you a simple question. I know that we portray Islam and
We? No one categorizes all Muslims as bad except Islamophobics. Let us hear the remaining part of her question.
all Muslims as bad, but there is 1.8 billion Muslim followers of Islam. We have 8 million plus Muslim Americans in this country, and I don't see them represented here.
Now, isn't it interesting how some people always manage to change the topic to fit their narrative? You were at a panel about a specific tragic event, and instead of addressing the issue at hand, you pivot to a generalized question about Muslims. Classic. She continues to her main question.
But my question is, how can we fight an ideological war with weapons? How can we ever end this war? The jihadist ideology that you talk about, it's an ideology. How can you ever win this thing if you don't address it ideologically?
Bridget Gabriel doesn't miss a beat. She acknowledges Saba's question.
And since you brought it up, allow me to elaborate with my answer. There are 1.2 billion Muslims in the world today. Of course, not all of them are radicals. The majority of them are peaceful people.
She makes a crucial point. They were there to discuss the Benghazi attack and the death of 4 Americans, not to generalize about Muslims. But since the topic has been brought up, Bridget dives right in.
The radicals are estimated to be between 15 to 25% according to all intelligence services around the world. That leaves 75% of them peaceful people. But when you look at 15 to 25% of the world Muslim population...
Now, let's break this down. Bridget is saying, sure, the majority of Muslims are peaceful, but even if only 15 to 25% are radicals, that's a massive number. We're talking about 180 to 300 million people dedicated to the destruction of Western civilization. That's the population of several countries combined. Why should we ignore this just to be politically correct? And here's where the historical parallels come in. Gabriel brilliantly points out that throughout history, it has always been the radicals who drive the agenda. Most Germans were peaceful, yet the Nazis led the country to war and genocide. Most Russians were peaceful, but the Bolsheviks killed millions. The same goes for China under Mao and Japan before World War II.
When you look at Japan prior to World War II, most Japanese were peaceful as well. Yet Japan was able to butcher its way across Southeast Asia, killing 12 million people, mostly killed with bayonets and shovels. The peaceful majority were irrelevant.
Think about it. The peaceful majority is often irrelevant when it comes to radical actions. It took only 19 hijackers to bring America to its knees on 9/11. The peaceful majority didn't matter then, did it? Isn't it funny how we keep hearing about the peaceful majority, but history shows us that it is always the radicals who make the biggest impact? It's like having a garden full of flowers, but focusing only on the weeds. You can admire the roses all you want, but if you ignore the thorns, you are going to get pricked.
So why should we worry about the radicals, 15 to 25%? Because it is the radicals that kill. Because it is the radicals that behead and massacre.
Let's dive deeper into these historical examples. Imagine being a peaceful German in the 1930s. You are minding your own business, baking pretzels, maybe listening to some Beethoven. Meanwhile, the Nazis are gearing up for war. When the bombs start falling, do you think anyone cares that you were a peaceful pretzel maker? Not a chance. The same logic applies to today's radical Islamists. The actions of a radical minority can and do impact the global stage significantly.
Our power hours of reasons and us talking about moderate and peaceful Muslims. I'm glad you're here. But where are the others speaking out?
With that question, the Muslim student became short for words.
Comment. Thank you for your responses. And I do really hope that other Muslims will start showing up at these conservative forums. But, you know, as a peaceful American Muslim, I would like to think that I'm not that irrelevant.
Saba Ahmed's response highlights her position as a peaceful American Muslim, advocating for dialogue rather than military action. She argues that Muslims need to be part of the conversation to address the ideological roots of radicalism. Dialogue is great, but where are these voices when we need them the most? It's like a superhero who shows up after the city has already been destroyed. Sure, it's nice to see you, but where were you when the real action was happening? Why aren't they more vocal? Silence can sometimes be as dangerous as complicity. If moderate Muslims truly want to distance themselves from radicals, they need to speak up, loudly and clearly. Gabriel continues, addressing the core issue, the danger of political correctness. She urges that political correctness has become a hindrance, preventing us from discussing important issues openly.
You stood there to make a point about peaceful, moderate Muslims. I wish you brought 10 with you to question about how we can hold our government responsible. It is time we take political correctness and throw it in the garbage where it...
Isn't it refreshing to hear someone say what we're all thinking? Political correctness is like a straitjacket, restricting honest conversation. We tiptoe around issues, afraid to offend. But what's the cost? We end up silencing necessary discussions about real threats. So, what can we take away from this debate? First, the importance of not shying away from difficult conversations. Political correctness shouldn't stifle our ability to discuss critical issues. Second, the need for moderate Muslims to be more vocal against radicalism. Silence isn't golden when it comes to combating extremism.
I'm just as much an American, and I'm very deeply saddened about the lives that were lost in Libya. And I hope that we will find justice for their families. But I don't think that this war can ever be won by just the military. You have to address them. You have to bring Muslims to the table to address this.
I think everyone agrees.
And finally, the reminder that freedom of speech is a fundamental right that must be protected. As Bridget Gabriel so aptly put, it is time to take political correctness and throw it in the garbage where it belongs. If you enjoyed this discussion, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content. Let's keep these conversations going, folks. And remember, it is only through open dialogue and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths that we can hope to create a better, more secure world.